Imagine building a business that doesn't just pay the bills. It gives you the freedom, time with family, and even lets you drive your dream car. Today you'll learn from someone who's actually achieved it, Greg Cassar. Self-made multi-millionaire growth hacker and investor who's helped scale over 350 companies and built businesses pulling in over $2 million a month in sales. This episode, he reveals the mindset founders need in 2026, the trap that destroys most startups, and the marketing and investing strategies that separate the winners from the ones that get burnt out. This is The Growth Concept. Greg Cassar, welcome to the Growth Concept podcast.
Thank you, Keone. It's great to be here.
Greg, you've built multiple businesses and coached hundreds of entrepreneurs, and you've designed an incredible lifestyle by design. But beyond that, beyond the numbers and the business success you've had, what is your mission right now in life?
Ultimately, freedom. That's like what I'm really optimizing for. Freedom and fun. And then with what's left over, making a difference. So we've certainly planted a lot of trees and we've helped a lot of people. Just this morning, I donated money for the people of Jamaica, that have just got rolled by a horrible hurricane and that kind of stuff. So it's good to have a little bit of excess. 100% honestly, like what I'm doing is just optimizing for lifestyle and fun, like really trying to get as much passive income happening and as many things, income streams happening without me doing much at all, so that I can be much more digital nomad-y, much more travel. And, I'm one of these guys that got lucky, hey, oh, look at this guy, lives in Byron Bay, surfs every day, drives a Porsche. That guy got lucky, right? But luck is labor under correct knowledge. And I just hustled and never took no for an answer. And that's kind of like how I got there.
That's really powerful. With your mission of just wanting to give back now that you've quote unquote made it, how come you've steered down this end and you haven't gone to the avenue of buying more businesses, wanting to just grow? How come you've been like, okay, now enough's enough. Now it's time to give back. I feel like that's a really important decision to make.
Yeah, definitely. And I do have friends who've I've got friends that have built it bigger than me, but they're always working and just always hustling, and maybe they're still living in the city and that kind of things. Where I've figured out over time that like quitting cities and moving to country was a lifestyle upgrade, and even better was country coastal. And like I've just recently turned 50, so I'm really about life maxing and building an amazing life resume. So what are the really, really cool things that I can do through the year and through my week? Like I mentioned, I surf every day, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to get fun stuff in there, but then like what are the trips that I'm going to do or the experiences that I'm going to do? Like just recently I got to fly a Russian MiG, like a jet fighter, and do those kinds of experiences that come as a result of, having money and opportunities. But it's just, building amazing bucket lists. Just fun, man. Just more fun, but helping people along the way. So
sounds like you've really cracked the code with hacking into this life and making it you're the dictator of your own story, which I truly admire and I find that truly inspiring. I want to talk about before all the success in your business, the investing, the freedom. What was your mindset like growing up? Was it so optimistic in the past?
I was always a hustler, so as a kid, on the farm selling goats and whatever. And then with my Maltese grandfather, I was selling zucchinis and tomatoes and all of that. I went down to sort of see my Maltese grandfather and I just had this thing of zucchinis. And he's like, I said, can we sell these, near your house? And he's like, well, we can try. He said, and this was my Maltese grandfather. He never had any formal education. He said, but people they don't want zucchini, but here I've got tomatoes, we'll put that with them. And then I said we ended up selling more tomatoes than we did zucchinis. He was older and wiser and he kind of knew that that was going to sell better, sort of thing. But I always knew that I was going to be successful in business. I didn't really know about the investing side at the time, but I was just, because I came from not much, like my family didn't have a lot of money, and that's fine. Like we grew up on a farm and just very working class upbringing. I was hungry to be able to create something better. And sometimes that's really good to have that hunger. If you're given everything in life, that's not good, because I've got kids now and, like I dropped my son off to his dishwashing job and I drove my Porsche 911 there. And then the guys in the kitchen are saying, if you guys have got a Porsche 911, what are you doing here washing dishes? And he's like, well, dad's got money, but I don't have money, sort of thing. So trying to teach him, the right thing. So to answer your question, I think it's really about like, yes, I kind of always did have the mindset of I was going to make stuff happen, but resilience was really like one of the key things. So if I look at everything, the amount of times that I've been kicked in the guts from when I started to now is ridiculous. Like it's off the charts. The amount of times that people have laughed at me, how's your money on the internet going and all this kind of stuff. It's off the charts. But I knew where I was going and I didn't let any of those, things worry me. And especially like with people, because you'll never get like a guy who is or girl who's more successful than you hassling you. You know what I mean? Like it's more people that want to pull you down, and so I don't worry. Yeah, there's kind of this mindset of them, and it's not really politically correct, but the wolf doesn't worry about the mindset of the sheep. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, like just before the call, I said I admire your hustle. You know what I mean? Like you're working hard. You got multiple things on the go. That kind of thing. So whereas other people might try and pull you back. So I think just like always having that hustle and then just doing whatever it takes. And sometimes in business, we found that one of the most powerful words was next. So like we tried that, it didn't work. So next, what are we going to do next? Like because all marketing is you put something out into the marketplace, you get feedback from the audience. Did it work? Did it not? Remove all emotion from it. That's it. A lot of people are too emotional, like whereas just like, hey, yeah, it didn't work. We would have loved it if it did, but we just got feedback from the market. So next, what are we going to do next?
That point you've just raised, especially with taking the more unconventional route in life and it being perceived as, oh, you're doing too much, slow down. What kept pushing, like, what was that internal drive for you that, because, yeah, you knew you wanted to become successful, you knew you were successful in business. What was that drive that made you keep doing the reps, push through these limiting beliefs and people?
I think there was a combination of multiple things. So security and certainty. So like at some stage you do want to get to that point where you own your house or block of land or whatever, that kind of thing. And then it probably doesn't matter as much for you, but when you're more my age, it does. So there's that security and certainty component. Plus, there's unlocking lifestyle that happens as a result of becoming more successful. And really, so much of what I do comes back to freedom, like, so I can choose how hard I hustle. I still hustle pretty hard, but I use a lot of leverage now. So, yeah, like there's multiple forms of leverage because when you first start off, you've really got you're doing more time for money. And then over time, you do more value for money. So like that's a really, really big transfer as you get older and as you get better at stuff. There's multiple forms of leverage. So you've got like the leverage of labor, getting other people to work for you. You've got leverage of money, like whether it's investing or getting other people to invest in. You've got the leverage of media. So this, like what we're doing right here, this is a leverage of media. And then you've got the leverage of code and internet. So you build a website and that kind of thing. And then now you've got the leverage of AI. So all along, just adding more and more leverage gave me more and more freedom. And I unlock all five of those types of leverage to give me more and more freedom in life. And like I said, it's just so much of what I do is optimizing for freedom. I got a pretty dope lifestyle now, but it's not, no one gave it to me. Do you know what I mean? Because
Exactly.
I think that's one key distinction in life of no one's coming along to save you. Do you know? And especially if you're a young dude like you or a guy any kind of age, no one's really coming along to save you. If you don't do it, no one's going to do it for you. You know what I mean? Which is in a way sucks, but in a way it's really good because the onus is on you, and life's a little bit of a scorecard. And then if you hustle and you keep going, then you can really unlock massive freedom.
100% agree with you. Those 5 key leverage terminologies which you said, at what point in your business journey did you realize the importance of leverage? Because just referring this back to the listeners listening to this, myself, that when you are a startup entrepreneur, you seem to wear all the caps. You're the marketer, you're
Yes.
also the sales team, you're also all these people. At what point did you realize that leveraging these 5 things is so crucial?
It, I was in a day job, so I was actually really good at IT. Early on in my career, I recognized that computers was the future, and then the internet came in and all this kind of stuff. Oh, yeah, I was good at IT, and I had this job. I was an enterprise architect. I designed computer networks for banks and insurance companies, steel manufacturers, those kinds of things. Like I was a proper geek. And my customer came to me and they needed what was called a SAN, a storage area network. You think of it like a big chunk of disks that they could store all their company's info on. And what they wanted was only going to last them 6 months. So I was studying sales and marketing at the time on my own time because of that whole concept of work harder on yourself than you do on the business, kind of thing. So yeah, so I was already studying sales and marketing, and then I sold them. I did a $1 million upsell to them and said, look, here's what you really need to do is, but this is going to cost you more now, but it's going to last you a year and a half instead of 6 months. Otherwise, we'd start the project and you'd have to kind of kick off the next one. So it was a great success, and then the company, my boss said, hey, gather everyone around. These guys are rising star in the organization. I was thinking they're going to give me a car, they're going to give me a promotion. And they gave me a $200 gift voucher to use at Myers, which is a department store, sort of thing. And then, which my wife ended up, spending on clothes and stuff. But it was a kind of like, that's an example of life happening for you, not to you, because like it felt like a kick in the guts at the time. But that at that stage, I decided that one is the worst number in business. So one employer, one income stream, one source of traffic. Like I really, really got that. And that's when I really sort of figured out, hey, I need more leverage than this. And so within 6 weeks of that moment, I was out of the day job. And how I got out of the day job was because I'd been studying sales and marketing. There was a lot of people that were saying, hey, you're good at this internet stuff. Could you help me with that? So getting into an agency, while I don't think the agency is the best business model because you just keep getting busier and busier and busier, I do think it's a great way of getting out of the day job and even something that you can do on the side while you've still got a day job because you're getting paid to learn and you're kind of doing, yeah, kind of doing those reps. And then I got into e-commerce as well. I partnered up with another guy who was really good at investment property. And then we had this website, propertybooks.com.au. We started selling books and courses about investment property. But back then, there was no Shopify. So we had to code our own website. There was no e-commerce store. Like getting a merchant was very, very difficult. So but the other side of it, when Google Ads first came out, I was on it within a month. And so I used to buy clicks on Google for like 3 cents, 4 cents, 5 cents, that kind of thing. And then went on and became a super affiliate. And I used to do this arbitrage stuff where there was, I could buy clicks on Google for 3, 4, 5 cents and then send them off to different websites. And that was all legal, at the time. So being early when new things happen is really important as well. I was early on Google, I was early on Facebook, I was early on Amazon. We went on and did $10 million worth of baby products on Amazon. The next big one of those that's coming is TikTok Shop. That's the next really, really big thing to be early on because it's TikTok and it's not available in Australia yet, but it's already available overseas. You've got effectively think of it like Shopify merged in single like checkout. They don't even need to leave the platform. And as an affiliate, you don't even need a product because anything that's on TikTok, you can just start selling it. Anything that's in TikTok Shop. So you don't need to ask permission. You can just start creating content for it. And the other thing about it is you don't even need any media budget. You don't need to spend any money on ads. You can just start creating, like, so say, for example, I'm really passionate about these calculators. I can just start creating content about these calculators. And if it starts to get a few wins, I could either put ad money behind it or just keep doubling down on more of it. And the other thing about it that's really amazing is it's very, very easy to see what other people are doing in that space, that are really already successful and then kind of clone that. So I think that's the next big one, TikTok Shop. It's amazing.
Getting in early is definitely one of those things where it's a game changer. And when you hear it from the public and it's on these mainstream media channels, genuinely, you've missed out at that time,
Yes.
typically.
Yeah.
You got into e-commerce in 2003, which is incredible,
Yes.
because I wasn't even born yet. And this is like the foundation of everything that happened in 2020. All these wealthy people that have made a lot of money on e-commerce. Getting into e-commerce so early, what were some key fears that you faced mentally or around you that you had to overcome, and what mindset did you need to adapt?
I don't think I ever had fear about it at
Yeah,
all
right.
because, yeah, my mindset was just like move with speed, test and measure and get feedback. And then business came down to just the multiplication of capital. Now it's more very much, about building brand, getting the message out there as far as like leading with value with content. But back then, that whole area didn't really exist. So it was really, and it has been for many, many years. Even if I look at what we do in our travel companies, it's largely about the amplification of capital. So ROAS means return on ad spend. If I can put $1 in and spit $3 out, then do I really have a marketing budget? You'll hear people say, "Oh, I've got a marketing budget of $2,000 a month or whatever." But the thing is, if you're multiplying your capital, then it doesn't really matter. If you're profitable, then just sort of keep doing it. So I never really had any fear at all, about any of that thing. And the other thing is mindset, right? So mindset and emotional intelligence is as much as 80% of your success. And all along, I've taken a top, like I basically step into and embody a top 1% mindset. So if you look at like what I've achieved, I'm definitely top 1% dude in my space, but I've had that mindset all along. So it was never about like, if I succeed, it was only like when and to what degree, because it didn't matter what happened. I was always going to pick myself up and keep going. Like, yeah, that was never in doubt. Whereas a lot of guys and girls, when they got kicked in the guts and they failed, they couldn't handle it emotionally, and then that's it. Oh, I'm going back to my day job, and like that kind of thing. But there was no going back for me. Yeah, I was just going to do whatever it took. And the other thing was having multiple streams of income, so that if any one thing dropped off, yeah, I call this like the multi-leg stool. Because if you've got a stool and it's only got one leg and someone takes out that leg, you've got a problem. You don't have a stool anymore. So that's where I like sort of two or three, like multiple streams of income. But it's a double-edged sword, that one, because sometimes that he or she who chases two rabbits catches none. So that's where like you kind of got to get something going, give it enough energy units that it's moving, and then in your spare time, then get something else happening as well. Because sometimes like your side hustle may end up bigger than your main hustle, and that's kind of like happened, over time to us as well.
Point with the e-commerce space, you were saying that this wasn't your first business venture and you didn't really have these fears. Your first business venture, did you have these fears of self-doubt? What if this doesn't work? Or was your mindset still, when this happens, what's next? Like,
Yeah.
was it very like tough still?
There was that thought of like, hey, if this doesn't work, I will have to go back to a day job. But my mindset was, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to not get back there. Because once you get out of the day job, once you get free, it's very, very hard, to go back. Like every morning, like I surf, but I don't come to my desk office until the afternoon. So I've got a couch office. So I've got a sofa, like
I love that.
I've got a sofa with a recliner, and it's got two screens beside me. So I've got three screens while I'm on the couch, with a cup of coffee and that kind of thing. Sort of once you get used to a couch office, it's very hard. If I went back to a day job, I don't think they'll let me have a couch office or a nana nap at lunchtime because, I'm tired. So very hard to go back.
Yeah, very good point. As you were saying, it's that mindset adaptation, which mindset's one of those things that's very cliche in this day and age. It's spoken about a lot, but for someone starting their first business, first side hustle, whatever that may be, or just wanting to take this first step, but the people around them, especially parents, very secure. They're like, just get a job, be secure, get a stable job, go to uni. What's the first thing people need to rewire in their head to channel their energy to this?
One thing, like I had the same thing with the parents as far as the advice they were giving me, they meant well, but the reality is they were not in the position where I wanted to be. So make sure that you are getting advice from someone, yeah, who's already got the results. So say for example, I'm a multi-millionaire guy. So and I've done well in internet and investing and that. So if I'm giving you advice, that's completely different to your uncle or your mum or dad who's saying you should get a good, safe job. It's because especially in the age of AI, I think being an entrepreneur and especially like having good marketing skills, good traffic skills, good content skills, especially good AI skills, you're going to be able to evolve and change. Whereas like the job comes back to that, one again. You've got one employer, and yeah, they can say we don't need you anymore, even if you're doing a great job. And because that's happened in our travel companies as well, where we've got amazing people, but over time AI has taken their jobs, and this has happened, very recently as well. It's just a fact of life. If you want to compete, you've got to trim the costs out. And yeah, so I've had people being replaced by a $20 a month tool. That's the reality of it. So yeah.
Like AI has taken over those low valued repetitive tasks, which is interesting seeing it evolve in real time and the ability to adapt and implement that into your startup, which for young individuals starting their startup in 2025, what are some mistakes you see that come up quite frequently in the people you coach, and what can we do to push through that?
Had lunch with Simon Beard the other day. He sold Culture Kings for $600 million. And he said the first thing that he does anytime he goes into a business now is just 5x or 10x the content. So, as a young person in any business you're going into, I would say, like, yes, you need product market fit, like, and figure out a niche or a market that you're going to market to, but just really start doubling down on content. So, like podcasts awesome, get short form happening, get YouTube, just because uh brand, whether it's personal brand or company brand, is going to be one of the few things that are going to help people to survive. It's kind of like putting a moat around your business. If I'm there thinking like to say for example, I was learning TikTok, right? I was learning TikTok, how it all works. There was this lady on there, and I'd watched a heap of her videos. So when I needed a TikTok course, I just went to her bio and then found her course. Like I wasn't like then going to Google saying, "Can I get a TikTok course?" It was about who you knew and who you trusted,
Exactly.
sort of thing. So that's kind of like how the buying behavior has changed. I think from as a young person, especially if you're still living at home, what's good about that is you've got that safety net to be able to try and fail. In school, they teach you, failing is bad, but in the entrepreneurial world, it's just part of it. Like I can tell you some of the failures I've had. Yeah, you've got that safety net of you have a roof over your head. You're still going to get fed, so just push forward. And in some ways be a savage. Yeah, you want to get out and have like a heap of fun in your 20s and whatever. That's great. But also, when everyone else is resting, just hustle, just hustle, just hustle. And it's really like, yeah, the keep learning mindset, keep learning, yeah, the emotional intelligence, the traffic stuff, learn the content stuff, learn how to sell, learn funnels, like because with business, there's what I call the profit triad. So we need to optimize in three main areas. We need to get more customers, we need to get them spending more, and we need to get them coming back again. So if we can get that kind of flywheel happening, then it just really, really, increases profits. And then another thing that really increases profits, for young people to know about is just reducing expenses whenever you can. Because if you earn an extra $1,000, that's not $1,000 profit. You might have tax on that. You might have cost of goods to produce it. So say you earned an extra $1,000 and you're in a physical product business, that might be $300 profit. But if you reduce your expenses by $1,000, that goes straight to the bottom line. So that's $1,000 worth of profit. Yeah, focusing in those areas, move with speed really is a key one.
We were talking about the leveraging these AI platforms out there.
Yes.
We were talking about how there's the platform called REPLT.
Replit.
Replit.
Yes.
And this platform allows you to create incredible things incredibly fast.
Yes.
And this is something I'm seeing in web development, these open AI platforms, which then you can code to your business objectives and get a system around your business. If you were starting again in 2025, what is the first thing you would do with all these high leverage tasks and activities out there?
I would be an absolute beast as far as learning the different AI tools. So whether it's from the content creation stuff, whether it's using things like Whisperflow, which allows you to hold down the function key and talk to your computer rather than typing, I wouldn't be typing. Like if I get on a computer now that doesn't have whisper flow on it, it's like the Stone Age. It's so inefficient. Yeah, like I'm frustrated if I use that thing all the time. And then there's with Replit. So what Replit is vibe coding, and there's multiple different ones. That's just an example of the one we use. So vibe coding is instead of like having to code everything, if you want to build yourself a SaaS, software as a service, you can then tell it what you want and then basically just keep refining the requirements, but you're talking to it and then it goes off and does the coding for you. Because there's a couple main types of business model. So when you're thinking about going online, you can be a services business. So say, for example, you're an accountant or whatever. You can have an info business. So you've got books, courses, that kind of thing. You can have e-commerce, so which is physical products. And then you can also have a SaaS, software as a service, where you're really leveraging code and internet and these days AI as well. There's no doubt about it that SaaS is the best business model, software as a service. So, because I've done really big numbers like with e-com services, all that kind of stuff, but SaaS doesn't have the same cost. So we, like I mentioned that we did the Amazon business and there was Shopify as well. We did over $10 million worth of baby products. But every time that we did more sales, we'd have to straight away be buying more stock. So it was kind of like money, we're doing well, but money was going around in a circle. So that's kind of like a hidden thing of ecom that people don't really talk about, that you're always, sort of buying more stock. Whereas with SaaS, software as a service, once you've got the thing largely built, it doesn't, yes, you've got to keep improving it and evolving it and that, but you don't have to have expensive development teams anymore. So if I was starting all over again, like, yeah, people say learn drop shipping and that is a good way to go. Drop shipping is a good way to get started as well, but that's physical products, but there's not much profit in it, so it's very hard. Whereas if you learn something like Replit and then which is vibe coding, you can then think of any kind of idea, any kind of market, like it's an app that just makes dog groomers' lives, it's an app for their phone, you know what I mean? Or whoever, pick the market, but you can design something like that without being a developer. You can just talk to it now. So I think if I was starting all over again, I would go big into the vibe coding. But the other thing is I wouldn't just focus on business, because a mistake that I made early on was I was just really, really focused on business, business is great, but there's actually more money in investing over time, especially if you look at it as a long-term journey and you compound it, like you learn the power of compounding. So yeah, that mindset shift from, hey, I'm just a business guy to I'm a business plus investor. And then within investing, there's kind of like three main like verticals or areas that are really crushing it right now. So AI, tech investing. So whether it's like in the GPU space or physical AI like Tesla, that kind of thing. And then you've got store of value. So the governments around the world are like printing all this money and they're basically broke and they're not going to be able to get out of it. So buying things like gold, silver, Bitcoin, that's going to continue to do well. While ever you've got a time in history where the governments are printing more money, then they can't balance their books. And then the other one really is like Bitcoin and crypto, because the world is going, more and more blockchain. So like learning those areas, or even just learning one of them areas, and even if you start small and then it doubles over time and then it doubles over time, and just because the sort of the difference between the rich and the poor is, or even the poor and the middle class, is the poor and the middle class, they work, they spend, and if there's any money left over, they'll invest, but it might only be a tiny fraction. Whereas what the rich do, they work, or ideally get money coming in from other leverage, and then they invest first, and then what's left over, they spend and save. So it's a big difference. And then if you can get it compounding and then figure out what the winners are like. So I figured out Bitcoin in 2017 and really went hard at it. And then since then it's multiplied, over and over and over again, and it's on track to do it again. Like, so just, Mark Cuban says, you only really need to be right once, right? So so if you can get a combination of whether you do e-com or SaaS or whatever, TikTok shop, if you can get a combination of business plus then, even if from an investing point of view, or if all you did was like learn Bitcoin and just doubled down on that. And every time you earned $1,000, put the first $100 into Bitcoin and just kept doing it. Not financial advice. Everyone do your own research, but like just as an example, yeah, like so that way you get your money growing for you over time. Because if you store it in dollars, as the governments of the world print more and more of it, the real purchasing power of it is going to continue to go down. So that's kind of, yeah. So transition from just B to B plus I is massive.
Especially I've read so much money books and trying to decode everything, especially in Australia, being able to borrow against your assets is a game changer
Oh,
because the
yes.
Australian listeners, we get taxed so hard
Oh,
when
yes.
we sell our assets.
For sure, for sure. And then when you get to my level and you're in the top tax bracket, and that's why so many of my friends are now going overseas and moving to different tax jurisdictions. For me, it's hard though because I've got a family and dogs, and like I live in Byron, which is pretty amazing. So it's hard to emulate that. But it is certainly something that I have thought about, just because the government does not reward you here for having a go. They definitely don't. They're not your friend. No.
Good surf, extra couple of mil, yeah,
Yes.
surf. Greg, looking into or in the past at 2003 with the marketing and sales knowledge back then, how has marketing changed since 2003 and especially entering 2025 as we were talking about these AI, all these different currencies out there? What's the new must learn skill when it comes to marketing and sales?
I think content and AI. Yeah.
Content and AI.
Content and AI without a doubt. Because I never used to even really double down on content. I didn't really have a need to, and I've always had plenty of business and all that kind of thing. But then when AI came out, I really realized that, for example, large language models like ChatGPT, they're not going to recommend you if they don't know who you are. So it's not what you know, it's what you show. So that's kind of like why I'm now doing more content, for example, YouTube or Shorts, and that kind of stuff. And then the AI tools that just future proofs you. So uh, yeah, I definitely would start with those areas, just learning the content, learning the AI, and then a combination of either ecom or SaaS. Services business can be great as far as getting started, like we spoke about an agency. Say you're helping people within a certain area. That can be a great way to go as well. But it's definitely changed because when I was younger, it was really just like Google ads, Facebook ads. A lot of those medias now are very expensive because I've read this saying for many years that the winter is coming, and it's kind of here now as far as the cost of traffic is very expensive. So it is getting harder and harder to compete in that regards. But if you can get the organic content spinning that up for free, then that's how you can offset the cost of paid media, because you start with organic and figure out what's working and then put ad budgets behind content pieces that are working. And that can really work well. Or you do retargeting, so show ads to people that have been watching your content and they already know, like, and trust the brand, and then they're more likely to buy, that kind of thing. So,
Have you
yeah.
done much trial and error with the new Instagram feature that is trial reels?
No. You use that?
No, I haven't yet. I've heard lots of other entrepreneurs and creators that are using it. It's essentially because obviously organic is to mainly your audience, especially with the organic reach on Instagram, Facebook being a lot lower these days compared to what it was 5 years ago with Meta, Facebook combining. And trial reels now allows you to pivot your reel, trial it with audience that doesn't follow you. So therefore it's
Oh,
technically
yeah.
free paid
Yes.
because people that don't follow you are now seeing your content. And then based on that and how well it performs, you can then show that to your followers, which is an untapped market. And as you were saying, getting amongst a opportunity early, I feel this is another example of one of these opportunities that are coming up early.
To jump on early, I think all social medias are going to change, basically the TikTokification of social media, because TikTok, they don't really care about how many subscribers and followers you've got. They care about each individual media piece, as you put it out, they'll show it to 200 or 300 people. Then they'll look at how many likes, comments, shares you've got, in what's the interaction, what's the watch time, and then if it's done well, then they'll push it to more, and then they'll push it to more. And that model is just so much better and so much fairer, and people are really liking that, and that's why other platforms are really starting to take that on. What's good about that is that it allows new upcoming content creators to get a foot in, because otherwise even unless you've got 1 million followers or a couple 100,000 followers, you don't even get a foot in, right? So it is a much better system. It is a much better way to go.
Such a great point. Let's talk about your online sales. We're doing some research into you. You've driven over 500 million in online sales through your teams and tracked thousands of different conversions.
Yes.
What are the key metrics that you monitor with this marketing, and what things do we need to look at the backbone of our marketing, our sales, when we're looking at breaking down these analytics? What has changed since when you first started to now, in your opinion?
I think there's a saying of the trend is your friend. So have you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad? Yeah.
Yes.
So that was like a pivotal book for me. One thing that was a pivotal change for me, Rich Dad, who's Keith Cunningham from those books, I got to do the 4-day MBA with him when he came to Australia back a few years ago. And then that was amazing. And I really learned a lot more financial intelligence as a result of that with businesses. And one of the things that came out of that was like the trend is your friend. So one piece of data on its own is no good, but seeing, hey, well, how does that compare to last week or the week before, that kind of, or the last day of the day before? Yeah, it really makes a difference. Working with over 300 businesses, what I've found is that if you don't have regular stats, and so either you build it in your own dashboard or you're writing it off to a Google sheet or whatever, so that you can see, okay, how much did we spend on traffic? Like, what was our cost of acquisition? How many sales did we get? What was our return on ad spend? And then you might need to break it down by campaign and that kind of thing. If you don't know that, then you're basically throwing your money away. So, and being able to identify, hey, it's dropping off or it's picking up. And then if it's picking up, being able to put more money in it, or if it's dropping, or if something's not profitable, being able to cut it, because everything comes down to, like running the winners long and cutting the losers short, sort of thing. So I think that the trend is your friend, and really, really having good math. Like, so for example, in our travel companies, we have our own custom CRM, and we've built out in our own like weekly profit and loss so that it shows, for that. But then we might have another view in there which then shows by Facebook campaign or by different e-commerce product, that kind of thing. So being able to break the data up a whole bunch of different ways to run the winners long and cut the losers short.
Is this something you're seeing a lot of new startups struggling to adapt, or vice versa?
Most new startups don't do it, like as far as, yeah, but maybe I'm wrong, but the most successful business owners I see, they definitely, either whether it's weekly or daily, monthly is kind of too long. You need to know, hey, how did we go compared to last week? That kind of thing, as far as what did we spend? What was our return on ad spend? What's our acquisition cost? That kind of thing, so that we know, because there's this saying of directionally correct. So you don't need to be doing everything right. You just need to be constantly moving in the right direction. So if you're doing that, then it allows you to be directionally correct and pivot and change. And this is where just remove all emotion from it, as far as it's all just feedback from the market. Is it working or isn't? And if it's not, then is there parts we can cull? Or sometimes, like for example, we've had Facebook ad costs that have risen, and then things that were profitable, then no longer now profitable. And so what we were able to do then was increase the average order value. So hang on, let's just add more one-click upsells behind, or like an order form checkbox, which adds another, like an order form bump, those kinds of things, or add more follow-ups behind, that. So it's not always about the front end. Often the front end is really just to acquire a customer at profit if possible, to then set you up for the back end of like, well, what else are we going to sell them? Or what else can we sell them at the time of, like, I'm a big believer in one-click upsells. There's the whole McDonald's, do you want fries with that? People are used to one-click upsells. So that works amazing. Just adding multiple one-click upsells to increase your average order value there.
Such a great point. Greg, we have a question from a listener, Sam G. He has his online coaching business, and he has asked you, what is the most important thing to have when it comes to characteristics in becoming the best salesman possible?
The best salesman possible. Okay, wow, that's a great question. One thing, like I used to be okay at sales, and then I've always been parts of masterminds, so that's something we haven't spoken about. Mastermind, like when I joined my first one, I couldn't even really afford it, but I just backed myself and did it because it's a fast tracks your journey and teaches you to think bigger thoughts, dream bigger dreams. And so I'm living in Australia, and for 4 years, 4 or 5 years, I went overseas and I had all these marketing and sales coaches like Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher and Frank Kern and Ezra Firestone and Russell Brunson, amongst others. And both Perry Belcher and Frank Kern, they both taught me to sell the same way. And one thing that I really learned there was that it didn't matter my version of success. What mattered was, and I do this concept of viewing through the eyes of the consumer, what was their version of success. So selling based off what they want. So often a way to do that is in a sales process is to future pace someone. So an example would be like, and in this script that I taught some of Russell Brunson's guys, and then it ended up in his Expert Secrets book, this kind of future pacing script. So an example would be, hey, Keone, like who we are and what we do, and you've seen some of the results others have got. Imagine we started working together now, say, for example, a year down the track, we're sitting at a coffee shop and we're talking about all the amazing things that have happened in your life. What would have had to have happened for you to say, wow, Greg, that was the most amazing thing, personally, professionally. So what does success look like to you, Keone? And then from there, I zip it, right? So then they tell you what their version of success is. And then, because otherwise you're selling based off your version of success. So that's kind of like future pacing, in the sales process. When I learned to do that, that was like a big, big game changer as far as my closing, the closing rate. And then Frank Kern says, show people you can actually help them by helping them, So then it was like breaking it down. So okay, if you wanted to get from 10 grand a month, say you said you wanted to get from 10 grand a month to 20 grand a month, then like, okay, well, if you told me correctly, you're selling 1,000 dollar widgets, so that means we need to get an extra 10 sales a month. So how many leads do you need to get 10 sales a month? Okay, well, 4 leads equals 1 sale. So then we need to now focus on how can we get 40 leads? Okay, so do you think if we can get 40 leads together, that'll help to achieve those goals, sort of thing. So really like future pacing them, getting their version of success and then selling based off their version of success. That's a big, big game changer. And then at the end, like people get all weird about, like, oh, so do you want to go ahead today or do you want to buy that or whatever? My,
Yeah.
I don't have any weirdness at all about like how I close at the end of a sales call. So I think at the end of a sales call, so say for example, this was for the collective mastermind or whatever, Keone, I'd make sure that you didn't have any more questions and that for us. And then I'd say, really just final question is, Keone, do you want a hand with it? And then I just shut up. And so do you want a hand with it? Can you see how that's not like, do you want to buy my shit? Or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, hey, do you want a hand with it or not? And then they'll either tell you, yeah, I do want a hand with it. Let's do it. And, or not for me or whatever. So that's just a really, really easy way of closing at the end.
When you say, do you want a hand with it, with obviously, in your sense, the mastermind, is that simply, do you need a hand with payment? Do you need a hand with taking the next step? Like, what does that mean?
No, so I'm saying, do you want a hand with it? Meaning like, it ultimately means, do you want a hand to grow your business, grow your investments, you do
Gotcha.
your work, that kind of thing. And then they'll say, yeah, I do want a hand. Because through that sales process, they will have told me what they are here ultimately and they want to get there. And then we've figured out some of those steps along the way. And then I'm saying, yeah, at the end, hey, do you want a hand with it? And then once they say yes, right? So this is going into like there's a lot to selling. You don't go straight for the credit card. So say for example, you were gonna join the collective mastermind. You said yes, you want a hand with it. I'm like, great. Okay, and then ultimately you do a stick piece as well. So that is awesome. Based off what you tell me, I'm very, very confident we're going to get some great results together and have a heap of fun on the journey. And then I'm like, hey, what's your diary like next week? Can you do Tuesday or Thursday at 3? Do either of those days work for you? And then, so you're basically getting micro commitments first so that you're like getting them in your diary or like, hey, is this the correct phone number? I'm just going to add you to the WhatsApp group now, and that kind of thing. So then once you then get up to, because another rookie mistake people make with selling is like they'll then send the link over for them to sign up for it later. That you'll lose half the sales. So in that, it's like, I'll fill out the paperwork now for you, save you the hassle later. So is this the best email? Is this the best phone number? Is this the best address? Cool. And then what business card did you want to use for that, Keone? And that's kind of like the last step because if I see it all the time, like people here, I'll send you the link and then they'll get around to it and they don't actually get around to it. Yeah, that's a lot to it, but yeah, I got very good at selling over time and yeah, there's some of the finer points.
I feel like there's definitely a future episode within just sales. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
so intrigued in the whole concept, and I think it's such a deep topic to tap into that so many people in their startup, whether that's personal life, professional life, that it's such a great skill to learn as well.
Yeah, nothing happens till a sale is made. But there's the marketing side is more leveraged. So getting good at online sales is more important initially than being able to sell. But I think that psychology and the just being able to capture leads and then close them over the phone. And there's no doubt a set and a close works better than just a close as well. So in our organization, like Jules, my wife, she'll if a new lead comes in for the mastermind or something, she'll talk to them first and then sort of qualifies them as to whether or not they'll even go into my diary. But then pre-sales of like, hey, this is going to be good for you, that kind of thing. There's no doubt that a set helps before a closing call. And then Frank Kern used to also say, make sure that they always know the price. Don't. Some people want to surprise them with the price at the time, but that's kind of like you don't want to have sales calls if they don't know the price. Is the way that I look at it because you don't want the price to be an objection. You want them to come into it knowing what it is.
Such a good point. Greg, I got a couple last questions for you.
Sure.
If you could go back to your younger self with all the knowledge you have now, what would you tell yourself and why?
You could achieve it a whole bunch quicker now. There's no doubt about it. It's completely different because like when I first came out of university, there wasn't really, any internet like as such.
Yeah.
I actually got recruited to become a spy. So yeah, so at
Watch
university,
out.
yeah, this is how because the internet was so young. At university, I had no money, and so I put myself in the army as a reservist. So I was an infantry rifleman. Then my second year, I became a truck driver, and then in my third year, I rewrote their computer system from my dorm room, right? And then so this, yeah, so it's in an infantry unit based out of Bathurst. And then the Australian Army Intelligence Division, which later went on and became ASIO, they heard about this infantry soldier in Bathurst who's an IT grad who rewrote the computer system and it was better than what they had at the time. So then they two guys from yeah, I'm on campus one day and a guy in my dorm comes up and he goes, Greg, there's two guys here from the government and they look pretty serious and they want to talk to you. And I'm like, what have I done? Sort of thing. But they wanted to know like what am I like? Did I build this and was I, like good at keeping secrets and did I want to live a covert life and all that kind of thing. I took it as a compliment. It was nice, but I didn't really want to live a life where you couldn't talk about anything you were doing and that sort of thing. But but that shows how early it was. So when I came out, there was no internet that was public, and available, sort of thing. So it was a very, very different, big deal. But if I took my knowledge now and I had to start all over again, I think, like what we spoke about, just being uh, uh, working harder on yourself. So just be a beast as far as personal development goes. I've learned a lot from Tony Robbins. So like on the mindset and emotions, he's got so much stuff on YouTube. I'd kind of like do that. I would definitely learn the TikTok, the YouTube, TikTok shop. I would definitely learn all the AI tools. I would play with ecom. I'd play with SaaS, and I would just test, like with speed, and then figure out what works. And then ultimately, you don't really want to figure everything out. If you can figure out a business model that you like, then find a coach in that space and plug into a proven system rather than trying to wing everything. Like everyone thinks, hey, the internet, everything's free. I can just, but the problem is like with YouTube, you can watch this video and then you got to watch that and then you kind of got to triangulate it all together. Whereas, say for example, if you were in drop shipping, then just find someone who's really, really good and done the drop shipping and spend the grand on the course or the mentorship or whatever, and then try and implement their system. That is a faster way to go. So pay to play. And that's why I've always done that with masterminds as well. Pay to play and you get the result much, much faster than all the trial and error on your own.
Such a valuable point. Greg, the last guest I interviewed on the podcast left a question for you, not knowing who you are, what business you're in. And the question is this: what has been the biggest struggle with achieving your goals lately?
Biggest trouble with achieving my goals lately. Well, one thing that kind of, as you get more successful, not everyone appreciates it, in life. So there is a point of like, one cost of success is at times people who were big in your life earlier on feel threatened by it, or, in Australia, there's this concept of pullers. It definitely does happen. There hasn't really been that much in the way of struggles lately, honestly, because I'm maximizing cash flow, multiple streams of income, and then doing, B plus I, business plus investing. So I don't know whether I really have a good answer for you on that one. Sorry, Kearney.
That's definitely a really good answer. Yeah, it seems like you've killed it, Greg. Well, Greg Cassar, thank you so much for coming onto the Growth Concept. What question do you want to leave for the next guest, not knowing who they are, what business they're in?
I would ask them, what are you doing as far as life maxing? What are you doing to maximize the enjoyment in your life right now and optimizing for the future?
Thank you so much for this opportunity to interview you. All your links and resources are in the show notes below. If you're listening to this, check it out. Don't miss out. Greg, thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciate it, and I've taken so much away from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for having me. Cheers.